Hello, Zoomcasters, and welcome to another installment of the USA Hockey Officiating Program Zoomcast, Officiating Zoomcast program. Tonight is episode 19, where the topic is volunteer opportunities. And not to take too much away from our panelists and their presentations, but USA Hockey being 600,000 members to govern a national governing body of any sport of that size. It takes a lot of manpower. It takes a lot of work. And as great as the national office is and our national office staff here, which is roughly about 75 to 80 people, give or take, the reality of it is 75 to 80 people cannot manage 600,000 members overall. So that's where we are primarily driven by volunteers. And our plan tonight is to talk about why and the overall structure of USA Hockey and how it's driven by volunteers and the different sections and councils and committees and so forth, and why that demand exists and why that demand always exists for volunteers to get involved, as well as talk about the different opportunities that exist in officiating in particular, those types of opportunities to get involved in off-ice roles as opposed to being out there working the games and working our Pee Wee games over the course of every weekend and so forth, but ways to get back as administrators once you can get to that point where you feel like giving back in an administrative role. For those of you who don't know me, I am BJ Ringrose. I'm the manager of the Officiating Education Program at USA Hockey. And joining me tonight are two excellent panelists who are very, very well experienced in the act of volunteering and giving back to USA Hockey. First is Dave LaBuda. Dave LaBuda lives in the Chicago, Illinois area, although from the backdrop within his shot, I can tell he's up in the safe confines, and usually it's a summer haven, but he tells me it's snowing right now, but he's up in northern Wisconsin right now at his summer home, enjoying the lingering days of warm weather before winter kicks in. Dave has been a USA Hockey official, or involved with the USA Hockey Officiating Program for 30 plus years, quite a while. Not only in the serving as an officiating member, as an official member of USA Hockey, but also he has served as the Central District RIC, referee in chief, for about 16 years. He served that district role before taking on the role as the national referee in chief, which he currently holds right now, for about 14 years. On top of that, one of his duties within as being the national referee in chief, he also serves on the USA Hockey Playing Rules Committee. So that committee, if you watch one of our episodes, I forget the exact number, but the episode that we did a few weeks back regarding playing rules and playing rule changes, as we're entering that process right now, one of Dave's duties as a USA Hockey volunteer is serving on that playing rules committee and advising and helping them decide the rule change process. Also joining us is Kevin Donovan. Kevin Donovan is from the Canton, Massachusetts area, kind of the greater suburb of Boston. And he has been a USA Hockey official for 30 years. Serves currently as the Massachusetts District Referee in Chief, a position he's held for 7 years now. And before taking on that role, he served as a seminar coordinator, evaluator, and seminar instructor. So thank you so much for joining us, guys. We appreciate you having us here on this episode, and we look forward to a really good educational hour. Just to remind everyone who is in attendance here, remember that you can always ask questions to this panel using the Q&A feature within your Zoomcast menu there. And feel free to submit at any time, and we will do our best to answer those questions, as many as we can, and hopefully we'll get to all of them. So with that, we will move on to our actual presentation content within the episode. But before we do that, as we typically do with every Zoomcast episode, we're going to launch a poll for all you participants to participate in. Quick 3-question poll. You should see it popping up on your screen now. Question number 1, aside from my normal game assignments, I have given back, so given back in quotations, to USA Hockey as a volunteer in the following capacities, and check all that apply. And the options are mentor, evaluator, seminar instructor, officiating association board member, local supervisor of officials. I have not had the opportunity to volunteer, or I'm not a USA Hockey ice official. Question number 2, true or false? The USA Hockey Officiating Program rules and policies are dictated by the USA Hockey National Office staff. True or false question. Third question, true or false? If I was interested in giving back as a volunteer, I know exactly who to contact. True or false? And we'll give you about 10 to 30 seconds to answer these questions, although most of the answers are rolling in right now. So. All right, pencils down. And with our results, which I'm sharing right now, you should all be able to see. Aside from my normal game assignments, I give them back to USA Hockey as a volunteer in the following capacities. The majority of you, the most popular answer, and one that we're actually particularly really happy to see, is 67% of you have given back as a mentor. And that is a crucial role, a voluntary role in the officiating program. Again, to kind of look back at previous episodes we've done with the Zoomcast program, I believe it was episode 2 or episode 3, which we did spotlight on mentor programs and why they're so important. About half of you said evaluators, half of you said seminar instructors, so great results there. Several of you are also active as local officiating association board members. That's great, getting involved in the process of managing your overall membership within your local area. A couple of local supervisor officials out there. And then a few of you have not had the opportunity to volunteer, but hopefully you want to. And we're going to talk a little later in this episode about how to get involved. Second question. True or false, USA Hockey Officiating Program rules and policies are dictated by the USA Hockey National Office. And it looks like about 2/3 of you said that's a true statement, and 1/3 of you said it's a false statement. And I believe Dave is actually going to answer that question during his discussion when he speaks to you all for a few minutes. And then the last question, true or false? If I was interested in giving back as a volunteer, I know exactly who to contact. And it's kind of a split decision, about roughly half and half. Half of you saying true and half of you saying false. And we'll certainly answer that question over the remaining time within this hour. So with that, we will move into the first part presentation of this episode, which Dave is going to share the overall structure of USA Hockey and its demand for volunteers. So take it away, Dave.
Well, thanks, BJ. It's always fun to be with you, and Kevin, same here. This is our first Zoomcast together, and I'm sure it'll go just fine, barring any technical problems. I want to, as BJ said, I want to give everyone a quick overview of what the national organization looks like, because as BJ also said, USA Hockey is basically a volunteer organization. Yes, we have some paid staff in the national headquarters in Colorado Springs, but and I don't want the fact checkers to get too wound up here. BJ mentioned that I think he said we have 600,000 members. Well, the number that I got for last year's membership was just over 1.1 million. And I'm going to stay with that number because I got the evidence to prove it. That being said, of that number, about 25,800 and an odd number were officials. And that number has been growing about 2 or 3% every year. Now, we mentioned the paid staff in the office, and you know what? The paid staff is there to support and to add some guidance to the volunteer worker base out in the field. That relationship is really based on collaboration and cooperation. No one tells anybody else what to do. We all try to come up with good ideas and figure out what's best for the organization and the game, because that's what this organization is all about, is the game itself, and figure out ways to put it into action. It's interesting, the answer, BJ, in the survey about how decisions are made. Well, I think this is going to start to hopefully add a little more information to answering that question. From an organizational standpoint, we start with the board of directors, and there's 91 voting members on the board of directors. That's the group that ultimately makes the final decisions. Now, those members of the board of directors are all volunteers. They are elected through their local districts and affiliates, and we'll get to where they fit into the whole organizational structure in just a moment. Along with the board of directors at the national level, there's 6 different councils that oversee a number of different programs. There's a number of committees that that operate on a daily basis, the various programs that USA Hockey has, and there's 6 of those committees. Then we have sections under those committees, of which there's 6 of those. And again, we keep going down the organizational chart to try and get as many people involved in not only the decision-making process, but also getting these programs implemented. Again, with a membership as large as the numbers that both BJ and I talked about, it's going to take a lot of people to service that membership. And that's where the real need for volunteers come in. The staff and all of these councils, committees, and sections, they all have staff liaisons, which is a member of the paid staff, but none of these staff liaisons have voting privileges when it comes to decision-making. The paid staff doesn't vote, period, on any decision-making. So I'm hoping that I'm making very clear that it's really the volunteers in the organization that ultimately make the decisions that we all wind up having to live by or abide by. Getting a little more specific into, let's say, the officiating world, of course, the officiating has a section. There are 13 districts, and each district has a district referee in chief, of which Kevin is one of them for the Massachusetts district. Those district referee in chiefs are appointed by the executive director of USA Hockey, and they need to be approved by the executive committee. There's also 34 different affiliates, and now a district could have more than one affiliate within its geographic area of responsibility. And there's 34 of those spread around the country, including Alaska. And that's where the bulk of the volunteer force is located. They're the people who really get things done out in the field. Each district has its own organizational structure. Some of it is pretty similar across the nation, but it can vary depending on the needs of that individual affiliate. It does, though, each district does have one district referee in chief, as I said earlier. And then the district referee in chief, when that position becomes available or is open, each affiliate, and I remember each affiliate belongs to a district, they recommend candidates for that position on behalf of the district, and then the district as a whole submits those names to the national office for additional screening, and then ultimately the executive director makes that appointment. They are, because it is a volunteer organization, particularly on the part of district referee chiefs, and Kevin and I can both speak to this, there are no term limits, unlike or somewhat like Congress, although I would like to think we're a little more proactive than our current Congress, and I'm not trying to get political here, but we do have a very robust group of district referee chiefs, and I think that's a good thing because we get a diversity of perspectives and opinions during our discussions. Kevin is going to go into a little more about the district level organizational chart, but just to give you some idea, that's how I started in this organization a long time ago. I was very happy to become an on-ice official. And over time, I discovered that there were other areas of the organization that I was interested in getting involved in because, once again, I wanted to stay involved in the game, but maybe do a little more than just be an on-ice official. Not that being an on-ice official isn't a great thing. And in today's environment, we're going to need as many people who want to be an on-ice official as possible. But being an on-ice official doesn't necessarily just limit your involvement with USA Hockey to the on-ice environment. All of these councils and sections and committees and things like that, they all have dozens of people involved in them, and there is always turnover in them, and we need more people to kind of step up and say, hey, I'm kind of interested in this. The way you get involved in that is from the grassroots on up. The best quality to have if you want to get involved in something more than just being an on-ice official is when you're asked to do something, to get involved in something, the answer is, where do I need to go and when do I need to be there? I mean, in all honesty, that's the best way to show your real interest in some area of the organization. And whenever you're involved in something, give it the best effort you can, because you want a good end result to whatever it is you're doing, because ultimately what you're doing is going to affect the game and the quality of the organization that oversees it. More than anything else, being reliable and responsible, which is what we all have to do in our daily lives, is the key here. Officials, both on the ice as well as off the ice, continue to make very meaningful contributions to the game and to this organization by staying involved both on the ice, but also when they feel their time is up on the ice, to stay involved off the ice. Now, I've really flooded you with a whole lot of information. The one thing I can do is what we do in our seminars, is refer you to a place where all of this information lies in just the way I've given it to you, and maybe even with a little more detail. And that's online through the USA Hockey website. And if you just click on the title About Us, there'll be a drop-down box where you can click on the annual guide, and all of this information is there. And for those of you, again, who are looking to get a little more involved in the game, go there, take a look, and then if you have additional questions, and you may have some at the end of this webcast, we'll do our best to answer them, but also contact the people locally who maybe are in those positions now, or somebody that you're comfortable talking to no matter where they are, because in today's day of internet communication, you could talk to anybody anywhere in the country or even the world and find out and maybe get some more information that would be helpful for you to make a decision as to whether or not you really want to pursue this line or this kind of position within the organization. Is that enough, BJ? Have I talked long enough here?
I think that was fantastic, Dave. And believe you me, I got my fact checkers basically looking into our overall membership numbers. Turns out that I'm wrong. I guess I got an intern to fire. So,
well, listen, I bring that up. I hope you understand, everybody listening here. That was not meant to in any way criticize BJ. But you know what? We like to be accurate. We're all officials here. We like to see things in black and white, and mine was in black and white. Fair enough.
And I'd also like to remind, I'm not sure whose phone rang in the background, but I just like to remind our viewers that this is not a call-in show. If you want to, you're gonna have to type it into the Q&A feature. But just kind of going back to what you discussed, Dave, and you did mention turnover. And we do, and within the RIC section, we actually had quite a bit of turnover there for a little while. We had about a 5-year period where we probably roughly half of our referee section turned over as far as the district RICs. And it just kind of made me think to a conversation that I shared with you, and I think it was Jim Dewhurst, our Southeastern District referee in chief, about the idea of grooming replacements and try to groom people for certain positions. And it was interesting, the reply, and maybe you want to elaborate on this, but the reply you gave me was, it's great to go down that road and to basically groom that person for that type of position and to kind of have someone ready to go as soon as you're ready to step down. But it's the turnover rate. By the time you get around to say the 3 years it takes, it's like the person leaves, he moves across the country or just gets out of the game altogether. Any thoughts to share on that, Dave?
Well, I do have some thoughts, and I'm sure Kevin can also jump in here when I'm done. Yes, I mean, the turnover rate in the district RIC, it's somewhat cyclical. But listen, we ask our key volunteers, and certainly district referee and chiefs are key volunteers, to do an awful lot. And you know what? Particularly in today's time, it's more demanding than ever with job and family. And then we're asking them to put in volunteer time as a representative of USA Hockey. Look, you know what? In all honesty, I think I can understand how some people can get burnt out very easily. I also understand when people who are in that position say, look, you know, I've just got too much other things that I have to prioritize above hockey, and I'm not being fair to the constituency within the organization. Therefore, I think it's time for someone else to take over. And you're right, you know, the world, the professional world, meaning the world in which we work in, where we get real paychecks, is a very transient one nowadays. I mean, people don't stay in jobs like they used to. So they're moving sometimes cross country. to different states. And that, of course, means that they're no longer available as possible replacements for the district referee in chief. So in some ways, all you can do is make an effort, if you're in that position as a district referee in chief, to expose as many people as you can who are interested. And that's a big part of it. I mean, if somebody's really interested, then they'll be a little more motivated too to find out, some things about the position and so on. But give them as much opportunity to learn about the position. And then, of course, listen, when I was a district referee in chief, when I first came in, there's a certain amount of on-the-job learning you do. And the same thing is true in my current position. So, yes, I think it's always going to be a challenge, particularly as we continue in this very volunteer-based, very demanding environment. And Kevin, I'm sure you can add to that.
Yeah, no, I think as we're talking about asking people to volunteer and step up, we were saying the turnover in the RICs. There's a lot with the RICs that we do, and really, this falls in line with asking other people to volunteer, that we can actually delegate more out. We have to sort of think of ourselves as a manager and have the confidence in the people underneath us, and that we're grooming to take on different roles for us, because there is so much, and things are evolving constantly, that we're constantly eating up our time. So it's really fitting that we're talking about volunteers, because we need more volunteers to do other things. I have, just in Massachusetts alone, I have 24 district supervisors throughout my own state. That's not even including my staff. If I took my seminar staff, between my ICE staff and my classroom staff, I'm managing close to 65 people in between all those positions and everything else. So it's about delegating. So we need more volunteers. So.
Really insightful comments, guys. Thank you. I think from here, we'll move into the second part of this episode overall. And typically, I usually start each segment off with a poll, but I only came up with one poll this week that cut my budget down. So we're just going to transition right into part two, and we're going to pass it over to Kevin Donovan, who is going to talk about not only those opportunities that exist, particularly at the grassroots level, but how to get involved. If you have that itch, that interest in getting involved in off-ice roles, whatever they may be, evaluator, mentor, whatever, how do you put your name out there? How do you get on the list? So go ahead and take it away, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, BJ. And on that note too, it doesn't matter where you are, where you've started and things like that, because these roles can move. So for example, I started in New York. And I started as an instructor, and I went to instructor camp from New York, and I started teaching down there. And my job wound up taking me to Massachusetts. And, my first year when I moved up here, I, weighed the land and figured out what to do, and then asked, hey, how do I get involved? And started just with really doing the mentor program in the beginning, because that's what they needed a role for in Massachusetts. So there's many, many different roles that we need to talk about and we can use. We need help in all the different landscapes. And Dave touched on some of them with regards to seminar staff. And it depends on your local area and how they break that down. But seminar staff can be meaning your classroom. You're teaching the classes, your level 1, your level 2, 3. So maybe you just want to teach new officials. Maybe you want to talk to more senior officials. Maybe you're doing college hockey, and guess what? You're starting to age out of that, and you want to give back, and you'd like to give your experience. The great way is to continue teaching and giving your experience back. In my state, we have one crew of seminar instructors at each different level, and we teach throughout the whole state. Different states have multiple crews, and they need your help. But Dave talked about, there's 13 of us as RICs, but then there's all the affiliates. So you have 34 affiliates, and each one of those affiliates, as a national RIC, we appoint people at a local state level. So there's RICs at those local state levels that need help. So there's multiple ways. Classroom we talked about, but maybe you don't feel comfortable with regards to speaking in front of a class and teaching that way. Well, there's the ICE crew. We need instructors to then get on and help teach on the ICE sessions. Maybe you're a strong power skater. So there's multiple ways to join that. The big one, mentors. We don't have enough mentors. We need more of our officials, especially our senior officials, to give back. That's the biggest one. Why do I talk about that? It takes time. You have to be able to give back and feel comfortable talking, working with the new officials. And I don't just want to say new official, but we want to mentor anybody to whatever level it be, whether it's to junior hockey or to college, right? So USA Hockey actually runs a college camp now during the summers. So we're helping people get to Division I college. But that mentor program, where that fits into us, why it's so vitally important, we lose about 50% of our new officials every single year. And if we can have more of our officials give back and become mentors where we can partner you up and become a big brother, big sister, we have a better opportunity to keep those officials around. So I'd say that's one of the biggest places that nationally we need help for is on that mentor program. And that also rolls into evaluators. So maybe you're an evaluator slash mentor. We want to go back and give little tips and feedback and help them. So there's the evaluation program. Then I look at, where local areas here in Massachusetts, I think just about every single RIC now has a girls and women's program. So most of us have appointed a girls or women's RIC. So we're trying to grow the grassroots on the women's side of the hockey. So where there's a big call for females to give back and become mentors and help grow the women's side and recruit. Recruitment is a big part of being a volunteer. Can you go out and talk to leagues? Can you go out and talk to organizations to help recruit officials? Because it's a never ending cycle that we're constantly looking for new officials. And the reason that we constantly are asking for volunteers is that, as Dave talked about, it's a time, it's a commitment. And we have guys that come on staff and maybe they're on for 3 years and they take time off and come back. I've been lucky enough that I have a good core bunch of instructors that have been around for 10 years, which is a pretty long time in our instructor corps. Most of the times we get them 3 to 5 years and you cycle out. But if you love teaching, and if you're a teacher right now during these trying times, we can use more of the teachers that have been teaching virtually and everything else. We're asking more and more of our instructors because of this and our volunteers, because of things that happen. We don't know what's ever going to happen and what changes. So this year, as we got thrown into COVID, everything moved to online. I had instructors that weren't comfortable teaching virtually. So what does that do? We reached out to some officials that we knew that were school teachers. Hey, would you be willing to help us out this year? Could you take a lead? You don't have to necessarily be the instructor. We need somebody that understands Zoom and can be the facilitator of the program and everything else, our producer. So we're constantly looking for new things. If you could think of something, a strength that you have that maybe we're not thinking of, suggest it to us. Where do you reach out to? So you can reach out to any one of us, the national RICs, and you can find all our contact information on the USA webpage under the officiating section of the home office there. We're all listed there. But if you're in your local state and you know who your local RIC is in a local state, reach out to them. Where else? Reach out to any instructor, anybody else that's volunteering, because they're already volunteering. They can tell you where to volunteer. They can guide you through it. They can be your mentor as an instructor, evaluator to give back. And it's based off what your time is. All right. So think about what you could do and give back in the amount of time. And we can fit you into a role that may suit your time. There's certain roles that take more time and commitment in different areas. Each of us run things a little bit differently with regards to, as I said, with staff and things like that. I ask a lot of my staff because we teach all of them. Some areas, like I know in New York, right? So they have a crew down in Long Island. They have a crew upstate, Western Mass. So they have different crews. Hey, we've taken instructors, hey, I want to come up. I'm from Philadelphia. I'm going to be up for the weekend. Could I come and help out in your seminar? Would you mind? That's a great experience to see someone else. They get to see the way that we do it. There's also other things that we do as volunteers, and the national tournaments. I'm looking at the names and who's here. I see a bunch of officials that have worked national tournaments in the past and everything else like that. As we get into national tournaments and in your local areas, the local RICs or another RIC comes in and is the supervisor for that. But we need high-end experienced people to really help us out and give feedback and help supervise games even at that level. So there's multiple different ways to help out. The list never ends. The time never ends. We're always looking for more volunteers. As I said, the biggest ones right now, I would say, is the mentor program. And instructors, we're always looking for new instructors. There's a learning process to learn how to teach, how you teach it, get comfortable with the material. We usually have you guys a year or so working with us, and then we usually send you to instructors camp. BJ, Dave run the instructors camp. We have the Colorado Springs and Lake Placid. Last year they were canceled due to COVID, but we'll send you to instructors camp, get to understand and get feedback, and you're critiqued on how to be a better instructor. Then you come back and guess what? You then teach us what you learned, because every year when they go to camp, they learn something a little bit different and they come back and teach the instructors. So it's fun. It's a great way to give back and stay part of the game. If you're, at that age when, hey, I'm not skating anymore, there's plenty of opportunities for you. All right. This is a passion. I talk about our officials in the state of Massachusetts as a fraternity, but truthfully, we're all a fraternity throughout the country. So 25,000 of us last year registered in USA Hockey as officials. We're just a small fraternity. We're a little nugget compared to the amount of coaches and players and everything else. And if we all work together nationally and help each other, then that's what makes us all a bit better bunch of officials, right? And I always try to get our guys to think about, you always want to make the program the best you can have, and giving back is a great way to do it. So.
Thanks, Kevin. All really, really good information. And for any of you who are viewing this, whether it be live or whether you're watching the on-demand version on the YouTube channel, if you have interest in becoming a seminar instructor, as Kevin said, we have the seminar instructor training program that's offered every spring. Typically, both sessions are offered either in late April or it might be the very, very end of April and the first weekend in May. Kind of depends on the how the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee and their two sites that they run in Lake Placid as well as Colorado Springs, what their openings are as far as accommodating our programs. We're actually going to be dedicating a Zoomcast episode exclusively to that program. I believe it's somewhere in the mid-November. I forget exactly what the episode number is, but if you go to the Zoomcast page at usahockey.com, you'll actually see information there. And you'll also see the date that registration, the Zoomcast registration, will open up. So thank you so much, Kevin. And I completely agree with you that mentoring is not only the volunteer position that is in the most demand, but conveniently, it's probably the easiest to get involved in. Because the reality of it, and there was a question I thought about asking Dave, and I didn't, but now I'm actually going to put it out there, is like the reality is, we don't necessarily have a set of requirements for being a district referee in chief. Like there are duties that you're expected to carry out, but there is no like check the boxes off. You must have X number of years experience as an official. You must have X years as a like we don't necessarily have prerequisites for being a district referee in chief. Being a mentor, you just need experience. Just a couple years worth of experience, 3 years, 4 years, just enough experience to get yourself out of, say, the cross ice, the 8 and under cross ice stuff, and through the 10 and under stuff, and maybe you're working high level 12U, or maybe you're working some Bantams. There is no reason that you as a 14 and under official, or a high level maybe a referee at 12 and under, that you cannot give back to that first year official. who's just going out there and trying to get through their cross ice games, or maybe they're lining a little bit on a 10 and under game, there's no reason you can't go out there and share your experience from just the basic fundamentals of stuff of where to stand, and other things like the positioning within the play and things like that. Just the basic stuff. It's very, very easy to get involved.
And BJ, just to add that, you're talking about the younger age to volunteer and everything else. And, people that are on here, is that I would ask you to reach out to people, ask them to volunteer, spread the word. But the younger volunteers is what we also need, because it's not just about the experience, but it's that relationship. And if you have a younger official, somebody that's in their teens working with a 14-year-old and things like that, the younger, there's a more cohesive relationship than just an adult talking to them. They may get along, they feel more comfortable. So there's opportunities for all different ages and all different opportunities. I had one, so I had one of my lead instructors forever. And, we used to be able to referee going back as low as 8 years old, 9 years old in Mass before they changed the labor laws. So he had grown up as an official, coming and everything else. And he used to come to our seminars. And at 16, he was on our ice teaching the classes and everything else. And it actually made a difference, because you saw the younger officials flock to him to ask questions because they felt more comfortable. So there's more opportunities. And, if you know younger people, to get them involved, reach out and ask them to become involved. So.
Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
Whether it's as a mentor or an evaluator or a local supervisor, all the way up to a district RIC or national RIC, the most important thing that an individual needs to do is, when they say yes and they make the commitment to do something, is that they in their own minds and in their lives know they've got the time to do the job well. Because we all understand we have other things going on in the real world, as I call it, which is the non-hockey world, that may very well take higher priorities to what the hockey world needs to be done. But having said that, as Kevin said, and as BJ said, if you say, yes, I'm willing to do this, I'm willing to be a mentor, and I'm willing to be at this arena with this official or these officials at this time, then honor that commitment and give it the best effort you can, because that's what all of us are trying to do in our own way in the positions that we now hold. Believe me, Kevin mentioned, in the corporate world, if he was managing 60 people plus, he'd be being compensated pretty darn well. Well, you know what? He isn't. He's a volunteer. I'm a volunteer. Gee, I guess that leaves you out, BJ. But and I'm being a little humorous here. And listen, we mentioned there's 25,000 plus officials who were registered last year. All of the office work that is involved in managing those 25,000 officials with regards to registrations and testing and all the record keeping and everything else is done by 4 people. That's a pretty good workload for 4 people. So the point is that, what, if I'm going to have to make a decision, or if anyone is going to have to make a decision about where we're going to allocate our resources when it comes to what's going to be best for the game and what's going to be best for the organization, if I've got a volunteer and they say, just tell me what to do, I'm going to say, go become a mentor, because we need, and I would hope, if anyone's on this, watching this, that doesn't know this, we have a real need for on-ice officials. I mean, this need has been growing over time, and it's not necessarily a matter that we're not doing good recruitment. It's that the environment that we exist in, which is the world outside of hockey, has changed a lot when it comes to people with respect and honoring what the positions of an official does on the ice. And we see that in all sports. So hockey is unique there, but it is something that we're continually trying to create a better working environment for all of our volunteers, for all of our officials. And that's something that the more people that we get involved in, the more exposure we can have out there to try and enlighten people and to try to show people that certain kinds of behavior are not helping the game, are not helping the organization. Maybe we'll continue to make progress, bigger steps towards constructing a positive environment for everybody involved in the game, not only officials, but players and coaches and spectators.
Yep.
I think another thing, it's, if anything, and just thinking about our overall, section committees and all of our overall volunteers within the various positions, and even further down, say at the state level and so forth, I think there is an overall need for trying to get more younger volunteers involved, particularly with, and the perfect example is the, as Kevin talked about, was the fact that we're doing seminars online now. It's a whole different animal, that where people that have been doing it successfully for years in the past, suddenly moving from the traditional in-classroom format to the online format, where suddenly guys just kind of break down. The minute you throw technology in their faces, they suddenly break down. There's a lot of opportunities out there, whether it be developing educational materials, whether it to be used at the local level or the state level, or it may be passed along and used at the national level. Development of those materials or other types of things. There's a lot of just technology is overwhelmingly running over our game now. It's everywhere, from the devices we use and then the methods that we use to now teach, be it coaching, be it officiating. It's just overwhelmingly starting to take over. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for younger volunteers to get involved and find niches for themselves within our program.
Yeah, as you mentioned, BJ, too, that whole admin portion of it, people don't even understand, is that most of us RACs have volunteer admins that help do the back office administration of the rosters of our officials that are complete, sharing that data, making sure people are accredited for seminars. So there's multiple ways that you could do a lot of volunteering behind the scenes that you're not even, if you're not comfortable in front of a class teaching and things, that is so vitally important for us that you don't understand, is that, wow, so I have, I think, 6 people that are just on administration stuff, making sure we're getting people into seminars and credited with seminars, be it live seminars or the virtual seminars right now. And you hit a key thing, which I forgot to mention too, on the national level with regards to education material. If you think of something, we have people that volunteer at the national level all the way up to help deliver material out. We're looking for ideas. If you have ideas and information, or you could think you could help improve it, let one of the RICs know, because we're always listening. We're open. We're looking for ways that are making it easier, streamline the process. I go back, my instructors camp was an overhead projector with slides and we used to write on with the markers, right? And we used to move the little men around and everything else. To now it went to DVDs and PowerPoints and everything else. So, I've gone through all the different technology and things, but, we need help constantly, no matter what it is.
What this whole Zoomcast focuses around is the whole concept of volunteering. And the one thing that maybe we should have started out with is coming to a common understanding of the definition of what is a volunteer, at least in the context that we're talking about it. For me, a volunteer, at least culturally in today's world, volunteer has taken on a whole different meaning and is affected by a whole number of different factors. But what we're talking about, I believe, as a definition of a volunteer, is somebody who's willing to give their time without financial remuneration, but being able to be satisfied with their own self-satisfaction of having done something to make the game better.
Right.
Because I don't think there's anybody who is watching this who doesn't have some connection with the game and wants to be able to make it better as far as either their immediate area or on a broader spectrum. Because if you're not satisfied with that feeling of self-satisfaction, then I think you need to re-examine the whole idea of what the volunteer is.
I think that's a great point, Dave. It actually ties into something else I was actually going to bring up. You as a perennial instructor at our instructor training program.
Perennial, is that another word for old?
No, perennial, look it up.
Okay, never mind.
For you. I use 50 cent words a lot. When you're there, like one thing you typically, and for lack of a better term, like kind of hammer the participants on, and it's hammering, but with purpose, is the reduction of I statements and reducing I statements in your presentation. I think that kind of builds into what you were just talking about, basically giving back and making the game better. Suddenly you go to instructor training program and you get the shirt. You get the black polo. Suddenly you have the USA Hockey Officiating Program polo with that logo on the front. As you can see, as our panelists can see, all three of us are proudly wearing our USA Hockey colors, which we love to do and we love to show off. Wearing that shirt comes with a certain responsibility, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It does.
Absolutely. And now you're going to put me into my instructor mode, seminar instructor mode, is that, hockey, as Kevin said, hockey officials in particular are a fraternity. And I have yet, and I've been involved in the game an awful long time, as Kevin has been, and even BJ. I can't really tell you what it is, what the commonality is, that as soon as you meet somebody, you can tell if they're a hockey person or not. I honestly can't tell you what that is. It's just something that exists. It's an aura. But it is something that you have to feel a part of something bigger than yourself. And when you put on that polo, as you say, and you stand in front of that classroom as a seminar instructor, you're no longer representing yourself, although in some ways you are. You're representing something much bigger, an organization that has over 1 million members. And you're also representing, within the officiating world, the officiating program. And what you do, what you say, and how you do it is how a lot of the people that you're talking to, that's the impression they're going to take away with them when they leave that program and go back home. And so, yes, I do make somewhat of a big deal about when you're in front of a classroom, or when you're doing something within USA Hockey, in whatever position it may be. It's not me talking. It's the collective members of the organization who have come together and said, this is what we believe in, and this is how we're going to do it. And that's what I'm passing on to you. And for me, that takes on an entirely different meaning than me simply saying, well, this is what I think you should do.
I think that even trickles down to the district level, correct, Kevin?
Absolutely. It's a constant communication of what's best for all of us, right? Not just that one instructor or just what I feel as the RIC. I may have some ideas, but what we always do is we talk about our ideas and what's best for the overall program or the area. We even look at things as individual leagues, right? What's best for that league and that part of the state and things like that. It's not a one size fit all. And as Dave said, it's not about you, it's about the overall whole. And the reward, truthfully, and that's why I still do it, is I feel that I am making a difference, right, in what I'm doing. And that's the I guess, in that the self-satisfaction is that I have had a contribution in making things better, but not that I am the one that's doing it all. It's that we do it all. And being part of that is the great satisfaction of doing it and being a volunteer and staying. So, right. So I went to instructors camp in 1996, and here I am still involved. Been an instructor ever since then. As the RIC, I still like to teach. There's not a lot of RICs that probably teach as many seminars as I do and involved. BJ, you were up a couple of years ago, and you're like, man, you're some old school. You're at a lot of the seminars teaching. I enjoy it. So I have satisfaction out of being part of that. So I still carve my time out to be part of the seminars. I don't have to be. I have a great staff to run that. I have seminar coordinators, lead instructors at every staff. If I'm not there, I have a level 1 going on right now. I got on, kicked it off, and turned it over to them. So It's, when you have fun doing something, don't stop having that fun. Continue to do it. And guess what? You're going to continue to volunteer and give back. If you're not having fun, then that's probably the time to say, hey, let me step back and see if I want to take a break. Maybe I need to reevaluate. Maybe it's asking too much time, as Dave talked about. I talked about it's the amount of time that you can give. Maybe other things have come up in my life, and I don't have the time to do exactly what I was doing, and do it. As I talked about, I came on staff in Massachusetts as part of the mentor program and a little bit of evaluator. I was an instructor down in New York, and Owen Thompson, the predecessor before me, called me up and said, "Hey, I need a new lead instructor at level 1. Can you do it?" Well, timing happened to be right. I happened to be out of work, so I had some free time at the time. So I said, "Sure." And lo and behold, I've just continued to do more and more, and it's because I enjoy it. So you have to enjoy it, and that's if you're not enjoying it, then don't be the volunteer, because that tends to rub off and show that you're not having a good time. So, but we can always find an opportunity for you if you need to cut your time and you're looking to do something a little bit different or make a change. Don't think because I've started out doing one thing that that's all I have to do. Feel comfortable. Ask to learn to do something else, or switch over to do something. I don't want people to constantly, hey, I want to be an instructor. I want to be a mentor. I want to be an evaluator. Guess what? I'd love for you to do that, but I'm going to burn you out. And that's not what I want to do. I'd rather have you do one thing or two things, and then I can keep you around for a long time, because then your age and wisdom constantly gives back, and it has more meaning and future benefit for all of us.
Thanks, Kevin. Really, really good information to share. We got a couple questions. One person put the question out there that a little bit older, he's a little bit older individual, or actually could be a female, doesn't necessarily specify or no, it is a male. A little bit older, in their 40s, third year official, got their level 3, and retired from the military. So certainly comes from a structured background, that's without a doubt. Interested in giving back as a mentor, but feels that as still kind of the quote unquote new guy, only being a third year official, whether they'd be good for that position or not. And I'm not sure if you joined late, but we actually just talked a little bit about that. The fact that you passed your level 3, both the open book exam and the closed book exam, and you earned your level 3, you certainly have a foundation of knowledge, and you certainly have the foundation basics of knowledge of being an official. You have probably mastered or are close to mastering basic level positioning and pursuit of play, and some simple offsides and icing calls and stuff like that. The kind of things that are brand new officials, the officials that are out there for the first time, scared out of their socks, just looking for a little bit of guidance, somebody to point them in the right direction. I have no doubt that you would fulfill that role beyond adequately, and go out there and move them around and give them a little bit of guidance back in the locker room, and give back a little bit in that position. I have little doubt that you could not give back as a mentor. It's the kind of the beautiful thing about the mentor program is as much demand as there is for mentors, it's very easy to get involved. And you really don't need that much experience to get involved at the very, very grassroots first year level. Another question, I'd love to get back and have time, but what would be a good avenue?
I was just going to add on to that. So being a mentor, and you could also wind up being a mentee too. So you can still want to develop yourself, and we can have somebody mentor you as you continue to grow your levels too. So don't be afraid to ask for that. If you are being a mentor, you can also be a mentee going up in the higher levels.
Yep, good point, Kevin. Another question, I would love to give back and have the time. What would be a good avenue? If you refer back to this episode, once it's on the on-demand in YouTube, you'll see we've actually talked about a lot of different opportunities that exist out there. But just kind of run through like the short list. Obviously, we've hit the mentor role very, very hard. The seminar instructor role, we've hit that one pretty hard. The evaluator, which there is a difference between evaluator and a mentor formally, although there's a lot of discussion going on right now in the referee section of USA Hockey of kind of merging and where we can kind of merge those two programs together into kind of one. Because when you think about evaluation and evaluating an experienced official, it's not that far off from being an overall mentor and mentoring a brand new official. So you can certainly become an evaluator, and that role serves more of our more veteran membership, that official that's maybe been around for 5 or 6 years and maybe looking for some new opportunities, whether it be playoffs or something along those lines, or they just want to get better. Like overall, they just want to be the best darn 14U or 16U, or maybe they're trying to advance through the youth levels and they're looking for someone to kind of come back and speak well on their behalf of how they're performing out there. That's where that evaluator can serve that role. You can also certainly get involved at the local board level. If you have a local officiating organization that handles the game assignments and things like that, and may actually run the formal mentoring program within your area. Every officiating association out there pretty much has an executive board, a president, a secretary, a treasurer, and they're always quite often looking for people to fill different roles within that organization. And that's not to say you'll go out there and be voted president the following year, but just to get involved on a smaller role within that board, you can work your way up. And yes, there are some politics to it. There certainly are. But to basically get the support of the overall membership within that local officiating association to where you rise to a position where you want to be. And you may be perfectly happy being a treasurer and just making sure all the numbers add up, and that's your thing, and you enjoy doing that. Or maybe you just like record keeping and keeping track of notes and then being kind of an archivist and just fulfilling the role of secretary. You can certainly serve that too. Or if you wanted an overall general administrative role, you could try the presidential way. But it's really kind of getting involved in smaller roles that'll ultimately build into bigger roles. And I think there's been kind of a theme also within volunteerism that I don't think we've quite hit hard just yet or hit it all just yet. Is no job is too small. When you get involved as a volunteer, maybe you get on the seminar staff. You won't necessarily be the person that gets up in front of there. I think Kevin will agree with me on this, is you won't necessarily get up there and give the big presentation to level 3 officials on judgment. It's a big topic. It's a big, difficult topic to cover. You may not necessarily even get a whole lot of face time at the front of the room, even with the level ones, only just because your instructor skills and speaking skills may not quite be there just yet. But to get involved, you could be back of the house and just record keeping and helping the seminar coordinator keep track of everybody. Maybe you're putting the signs up at the beginning, taking the signs down, because someone needs to take care of that. And if someone's taking care of that, the seminar coordinator can focus on bigger things. There's no job too small. Any other thoughts to share on that, guys?
No, I was just going to hit that. You hit it well. My point was going to be, you can shadow us to actually see if you want to be an instructor, right? You're not sure, reach out, come sit in the program and follow us around for a day at a seminar or a couple seminars to see if you feel comfortable. And as BJ says, we're not going to throw you in the deep end. It would do us no good to throw anybody in the deep end. We want to make sure that whatever role that you take is that you're comfortable in that role. So it's key to make sure you're comfortable. I have a few new female people this year that were not comfortable in the past, but through talking to them and finding out where they would be comfortable to start, they started in a small spot, and they become more comfortable each year doing a little bit more. And that's all we ask.
As both Kevin and BJ just said, everything starts at the grassroots local level. That's the best way to learn what's all involved. And as Kevin just said, and BJ said a little while ago, we know we want to keep you around. So we're going to do everything we can not to put you in over your head. And you know what? Maybe that means that maybe what you're shooting for right now might be a little bit over your head. But you know what? There's a way we can get you there. And Kevin just kind of outlined it. Well, maybe it's a matter of, hey, stick with me for a little while and learn a few tricks here and there. And you know what? Maybe it'll be just that much easier to put you into that kind of position. Listen, you know what? There's lots of different ways of getting involved and learning different ways of doing things. I mean, Kevin, I don't think there was a training program that you went through to become a district RIC.
No, it jumped off the deep end.
Exactly. I mean, and again, in all honesty, and this also goes back to what both Kevin and BJ just said, and that is, just like in the corporate world, the higher up the ladder you go administratively, the more responsibility you have and the more decision making you have, and sometimes that requires a lot more time, a lot more effort, and a lot more stress. Like it or not, I mean, that's the way the world is. But the difference is, you're the remuneration, and I got to find another word for that because I'm having a hard time saying it. You've got to be willing to just get that fulfillment within yourself that yes, you made in your mind the right decision. It's what's best for the game, and not think about the fact that you're not getting a paycheck.
Great comments, Dave, and great comments to close on. And with that question to Kevin regarding training for RIC, I now look forward to the official launch of the District RIC Boot Camp.
Hey, listen, real quickly, 20 seconds. The one of the questions we ask a potential new district referee in chief is, do you have a hard time saying the word yes?
And I'll just add this, is that you're just honest. And Dave knows, I have a family, I have 2 young kids, and I was honest with them with what my commitment could be. I said, if that can't fit into the role, I understand that. And that's all we ask, is that you're honest of what your time and commitment could be. And if you could, as Dave said, when you make that commitment, you stick to that commitment during that time. That's all we ask.
Well said, Kevin.
Great, thank you, guys. For those of you who are maybe have like one eye on the clock right now, you'll notice that we have reached and breached the top of the hour, so we're going to have to close things up. So on that, we are going to share our upcoming schedule as we typically do at the end of every single episode. As you can see, we're here in E19, Volunteer Opportunities. And next week, please feel free to tune in again and join Scott Zelkin as he's going to be in the captain's chair for our NCAA officiating episode. Scott's going to be joined by Jeff Fulton, who runs the majority of the, well, particularly in the Northeast anyways, the majority of the Division III scheduling of college hockey officials out there. Jeff Fulton also being the founder and owner of the Officials Warehouse, proud partner of USA Hockey. But Jeff's going to share his experience. Worked an NCAA final at the Division I level with his on-ice experience, so had a lot of success as an on-ice official, but then moved into the administrative role into assigning, and he serves the D3 level very, very well. Scott will also be joined by Steve Piotrowski. Steve Piotrowski is the Director of Officials for the Big Ten Division I Conference. So Steve's going to share some of his insight and wisdom of officiating at the NCAA Division I level and what it takes to get there, and more importantly, what it takes to stay there. It's one thing to get the job, it's a whole other thing to keep the job. But they'll also be joined by Alicia Henry. Alicia Henry is top level, kind of retired now, but top level IHF official, worked the Olympics not too far back, I believe it was in 2010. And then as well, or excuse me, no, it wasn't 2010, it was 2014 in Sochi. But also works regularly in the NCAA Division I level in the women's game. So all 3 of them are going to be joining Scott for that particular episode. And then as you can see on November 3rd, that episode or that day falls in line with Election Day. So we as the Zoomcast team decided to exercise our electoral process and elected to take the week off. So we're not going to be there that week. And then we're going to follow up back on November 10th with the USA Hockey Program update. We're going to give you some insight and information with where things stand with regard to hockey opening back up, our registration program, where we see our successes right now and where we see some of our challenges, and outside of registration, where we see some successes and program challenges within the USA Hockey Officiating Program. So that's our upcoming schedule. You'll also note within that schedule, you'll see our social media channels on both Twitter and Instagram. Very, very easy to search, very easy to find and like and follow. So feel free to find us on Twitter and Instagram. We put tweets out there regularly, not only in regard to the Zoomcast program, but other things going on within the officiating program, share announcements and stuff like that. And we quite often retweet tweets and Instagram postings from the main USA Hockey channel as well. So for those that join us here, also, you'll have a survey reminder. When we wrap up here, you'll get a link to access a survey with a follow-up to this episode. I encourage you all to complete that survey and submit it. It's basically, I check out every single one. We're always looking for your feedback, both constructive. We want to learn how to make this program better, but also the things that we did well. We love to see where our successes were over the course of this hour. And then, of course, there's that one question that asks you about potential topics. And we're always looking for good topics. We want to know what's of interest to you as our loyal Zoomcast viewers out there, what you'd like to see us do a particular episode on. So we'll wrap this up. I just want to thank all the participants. For those of you who have followed us for week in and week out for 19 episodes, thank you so much for your support and dedication for so many weeks. We enjoy doing this. We enjoy offering this program out to you week in and week out. And if it's your first time ever watching one of these episodes, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And we hope to see you on a few future episodes somewhere in the near future. And then, of course, thank you to both Kevin Donovan and Dave LaBuda as our panelists. Thank you so much for taking just a little more time as a volunteer and giving back to us here at USA Hockey and sharing your wisdom and experience as a volunteer and your experience within the USA Hockey Officiating Program. So we'll wrap it up. I'm BJ Ringrose, and on behalf of USA Hockey and the Officiating Program, thank you for your dedication to USA Hockey.